Welcome back to AI Unraveled. Today we are talking about the hardest limit of all, physics. For decades, we treated compute as an infinite resource. But in 2026, the party is over. We have hit the infrastructure cliff. The grid is full, the transmission lines are delayed, and the only way to scale AI further is to do something radical. Build your own power plant. In this episode, we explore the Megawatt Wars. We look at why Meta is building nuclear capacity that rivals small nations, why Microsoft is restarting 3 Mile Island, and why the next antitrust battle won't be about search results. It will be about access to electrons. But before we plug in, are you drowning in dense legal text? Jamgamind is the new audio intelligence platform that turns 100-page healthcare or energy mandates into 5-minute executive briefings. Whether you are navigating Bill C-27, Canada, or the CMS 0057F interoperability rule, USA, our AI agents decode the liability so you don't have to. Start your specialized audio briefing today at djamgamind.com. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Now, let's unravel the grid.
Monday, January 19th, 2026. If you are listening to this, you are plugging into a world that looks, well, fundamentally different than it did just 24 months ago.
It's not just different, it's physically hotter. A lot hotter.
That's a good way to put it. We used to talk about code. We used to obsess over who had the smartest Python engineers, who had the most elegant algorithms, or which chatbot could write the best haiku.
We thought AI was a software problem.
Exactly. We thought it was all about the software.
And today, that era is dead. It's over. The software phase of AI, well, that was just the opening skirmish. We have officially hit what the analysts are calling the thermodynamic wall.
That sounds incredibly ominous. And frankly, looking at the NASDAQ this morning, it feels pretty ominous.
It should. It absolutely should. Because we are not in a code war anymore. We are in the Megawatt Wars. The winner of this race, the race for artificial general intelligence, it isn't going to be the company with the cleverest neural network. It's going to be the company that masters the physics of electron generation and, just as importantly, heat dissipation.
So today we are tearing into a massive, and I mean exhaustive, deep dive. It's titled Big Tech's Energy Utility Wars. This is a source document that lays out in really excruciating detail how the biggest companies on Earth, we're talking Meta, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, are morphing.
They're not just tech companies anymore.
And to close. They're becoming regulated utilities just to survive what this paper calls the infrastructure cliff.
That's it. So our mission today is to really explain why physics is the new bottleneck. We're going to analyze the billions with a B being poured into nuclear reactors.
Actual nuclear reactors. And it still sounds wild to say that.
And we're going to break down the energy moat that is effectively locking out every single startup that isn't already $1 trillion giant.
It is high energy, it is financially sharp, and honestly, reading through this, it's a little terrifying. So buckle up.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's unpack this. For decades, we lived under this beautiful illusion called Moore's Law. We just assumed compute was infinite.
And cheap. Don't forget cheap.
Infinite and cheap. We thought you could just shrink a chip and it would magically get faster and somehow cooler.
It was a very beneficial illusion. It drove the entire tech economy for 50 years. But the reality check has arrived, and it has hit hard. Intelligence, and I mean both biological and artificial, it is not magic. It is an energy conversion process.
An energy conversion process.
That's all it is. You are taking electricity and you are transmuting it into two things. Reduced entropy, which is information, and waste heat. That is the fundamental, inescapable equation.
And the scale of this conversion is just...
Yeah.
It's hard to get your head around now. I was looking at the notes here on the comparison between, say, the human brain and these new AI clusters.
Oh, it's the most humbling comparison in all of science. Your brain listening to this right now is operating on about 20 watts of power.
20 watts. A dim light bulb.
A very dim light bulb. Meanwhile, the modern AI clusters that we are seeing come online in 2026 are requiring megawatts, hundreds of megawatts. We are talking about a power density that has just absolutely exploded.
We have some data points here on the hardware. The NVIDIA H100, which, is practically old tech at this point in early 2026, it draws 700 watts.
Right, for a single chip. But the key is what happens when you stack them. look at the rack densities now.
That's the crazy part.
We are pushing past 100 kilowatts, even 120 kilowatts per rack. Now, to give you a sense of scale, a standard server rack from just a few years ago was maybe 8 to 10 kilowatts. Maybe.
So an order of magnitude increase.
At least. We have increased the thermal density by a factor of 10 or more.
And that leads directly to what the paper calls the heat nightmare.
Right, because you physically cannot blow enough air through these machines to keep them from melting. It's impossible. Traditional air cooling, the kind that powered the cloud for 20 years, is obsolete. It's a museum piece.
So what do you do?
You move to liquid. If you walk into a cutting-edge data center today, you don't hear fans whirring. You hear pumps. You hear the gurgle of coolant. We have been forced into direct-to-chip liquid cooling and, in some extreme cases, full immersion cooling.
So literally dunking the servers in a bath of non-conductive fluid.
Literally dunking them just to stop the hardware from turning into a pile of slag.
But why? I mean, this is the fundamental question, isn't it? Why can't we just make the chip smaller? Why can't we engineer our way out of this heat problem like we, always have?
Because of a gentleman named Rolf Landauer, and this is where the hard science, the stuff you can't argue with, comes in. There is a physical law called Landauer's principle,
Okay.
and it states, very simply, that erasing one bit of information, just wiping a 0 to a 1 or a 1 to a 0, dissipates a minimum, an irreducible minimum amount of heat.
Minimum amount.
Minimum. The specific equation is KTLN2.
Okay, KTLN2. Break that down for us non-physicists.
It just means there's a floor. There's a fundamental cost to computation. As you get down to the atomic scale, the energy cost of just moving data around and flipping bits starts to dominate everything else. You cannot engineer your way around the laws of thermodynamics.
So we're hitting a wall, the energy wall.
We're not just hitting it, we're smashing into it at full speed. What it means in practice is that linear gains in intelligence now require exponential increases in energy. That curve, which was our friend for so long, has turned against us.
Sounds like a trap, a developmental trap.
It is a thermal trap, and you can see the desperation in the industry to try and escape it. I mean, you look at some of these startups. We have companies like Ver Computing working on something called reversible computing.
Reversible computing, what is that?
It's wild stuff. It's almost science fiction. They are designing logic gates that don't actually erase information in the traditional sense. Instead of dumping that energy as waste heat, they try to recycle it back into the circuit.
And if they pull that off?
If they pull it off, it's a potential 4,000x efficiency gain, a complete game changer. But it's a huge if.
And then there's this other category, thermodynamic computing,
Right.
with companies like Extropic and Normal Computing.
Right. They're taking an even crazier approach. They're looking at the thermal noise in a chip, the random static that usually corrupts data and is seen as a nuisance, and they're trying to use it as a computational resource.
Using the noise instead of fighting it.
Exactly. Using it for probabilistic sampling in AI models. It's brilliant, it's mind-bending, but it's also a Hail Mary. These are incredibly capital-intensive attempts to find a loophole in the laws of physics, all because the electrical grid simply cannot keep up with the current architecture.
Which brings us to, I think, the biggest collision happening in the global economy right now, the infrastructure cliff.
This is the supply and demand crisis of our generation. On one side, you have the exponential, insatiable demand for AI compute. Just goes straight up.
And on the other side?
On the other side, you have the electrical grid. And the grid is linear, at best. In many places, it's completely stagnant.
The numbers in this report are stark. The entire U.S. grid has a capacity of roughly 1,200 gigawatts.
Right, for the whole country. Everything.
And Meta, just one company, Meta is on the record saying they need hundreds of gigawatts over time.
The math just doesn't work. It's impossible. And the real crisis, the thing that nobody seems to grasp, is the time mismatch. We call it the gigawatt gap.
Explain that.
Okay, think about it this way. AI hardware, a new chip from NVIDIA or Google, evolves on an 18 to 24-month cycle. A whole new generation of capability every 2 years.
Right.
Now, how long does it take to build a new high-voltage transmission line in the United States?
I know the answer to this, and it's terrifying. 7 to 10 years.
7 to 10 years, if you're lucky. You have permitting, land acquisition, lawsuits, state regulatory hurdles, federal hurdles. So you have a technology moving at the speed of light, physically tethered to an infrastructure that moves at the speed of a sloth.
This has fundamentally changed the way these companies value real estate, hasn't it? I'm seeing this new KPI pop up in all the financial reports. Time to power.
That is the only metric that matters anymore. Latency. FLOPS. Who cares? It's all irrelevant. If you can't plug your new supercomputer in, it's just the world's most expensive paperweight.
So a plot of land with a guaranteed power connection
Is worth infinitely more than a plot of land with the best fiber optic cables in the world. Power is the new prime real estate.
And we're seeing the consequences of this in the interconnection queue,
Yeah.
right? For listeners who don't know, that's basically the waiting list to plug a new project into the grid.
It's the longest line in business. In places like PJM, that's the grid operator for the Mid-Atlantic states, the delays for new connections are stretching out to 2030.
2030.
And look at Northern Virginia, what we used to call Data Center Alley. It's effectively full, capped out. Dominion Energy is telling new applicants, take a number, we might see you in 4 to 7 years.
So if you didn't have the foresight to book your block of power 3, 4, 5 years ago,
You are locked out. It's over. We're seeing what the paper calls a landed gentry effect. The hyperscalers, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they saw this coming. They booked gigawatts of power years ago. They own the land, they own the connections, they hold all the keys.
and everyone else?
Everyone else is standing outside the castle walls, looking at a dark, empty building with no power.
So the grid is full. The transmission lines take a decade to build. The chips are literally melting. What is the solution? Where do they go from here?
There is only one way out. There's only one technology that fits the profile, the nuclear pivot.
And I can hear the listeners asking the obvious question, why not wind? Why not solar? I mean, they're cheaper, they're faster to build, aren't they?
They are. But it comes down to something I call the basal metabolic rate of AI. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of the AI workload.
What do you mean?
When you are training a massive model like a GPT-6 or whatever the next generation is, that cluster of GPUs needs to run at 100% utilization. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for weeks, sometimes months on end. It is a perfectly flat, unwavering load.
And the sun doesn't shine at night and the wind doesn't always blow.
Precisely. Intermittency is the absolute enemy of AI training. And it's not just an inconvenience, it's financially catastrophic. I saw a data point that a single minute of downtime for one of these clusters, it costs anywhere from $9,000 to $33,000
Per minute, that's just staggering.
But that's just the cash cost. That's the easy part to calculate. The real cost is the training run itself. If the power flickers for even a second, you could corrupt weeks of training continuity. You ruin the checkpoints. You might have to scrap the entire run and start over.
A multi-million-dollar mistake.
A multi-hundred-million-dollar mistake. You cannot run a trillion-dollar industry on the hope that the wind blows. And batteries. Batteries are simply not there yet. They're far too expensive for multi-day gigawatt-scale storage.
So they're going nuclear. But they're not just buying nuclear power from the grid like a normal customer. They're doing something different, something called behind the meter.
This is the revolution. This is the key insight. Co-location. You don't bring the power to the data center. You bring the data center to the power. You build it directly on the campus of the nuclear power plant.
And wire it straight in.
You wire it straight into the bus bar. You completely bypass the congested public grid. You go into what they call island mode. You have your own private, perfectly reliable power source.
Let's talk about the deals that really define this shift. First up, Amazon and Talon Energy.
That was the big one, the one that opened everyone's eyes. AWS bought a 960 megawatt campus right at the Susquehanna nuclear plant in Pennsylvania. They effectively bought the entire output of one of the reactors before it ever had a chance to hit the grid.
And then Microsoft, not to be outdone, goes to a very famous location, 3 Mile Island.
This one is just historic. It's a 20-year power purchase agreement, a PPA, to restart Unit 1, which has been dormant for years. They are literally resurrecting a retired nuclear asset.
And renaming it the Crane Clean Energy Center.
Solely to feed the AI beast. They are bringing a power plant back from the dead for their data centers.
And what about Meta?
Meta is just going for pure volume. They've signed deals for 6.6 gigawatts of nuclear power. They're partnering with a company called Vistra to do uprates, which is basically turbocharging existing reactors to squeeze more power out of them. It's the largest corporate support for nuclear uprates in history.
Those are all existing large-scale plants. What about the future? We keep hearing about SMR's small modular reactors.
That's the long game. That's how they future-proof their roadmaps. You see Google working with Kairos Power on molten salt reactors. You see Amazon putting $500 million into a company called X Energy. They're trying to get a dedicated supply chain of smaller, factory-built reactors they can deploy wherever they need them.
But the cost. I mean, this has to be the objection, right? Nuclear is expensive. The levelized cost of energy, the LCOE, for nuclear is something like $100 to $180 per megawatt hour.
Yeah.
Solar is down around 30.
It doesn't matter. The math has changed. The value of reliability completely trumps the raw cost of the electron. If you are Microsoft or Meta and you are in a race for AGI that will determine the future of your company, you will happily pay 4 or 5 times the price for power if it is 100% guaranteed.
Because the cost of not having it is infinitely high.
The cost of not having it is extinction.
Okay, so we know what they are doing. They're buying reactors. But how they're going about it is starting to look very different depending on which company you're looking at. We're seeing a real strategic divergence emerge.
We are. It's fascinating. On one side, you have Meta, and I would call this the sovereign infrastructure strategy.
This is their Meta Compute initiative.
Exactly. It's a new division that reports directly to Zuckerberg. Their goal is explicitly stated, it's not a secret, tens of gigawatts this decade. And they're talking about investing up to $600 billion by 2028 to get there.
$600 billion. That's the GDP of a mid-sized country.
It is. And look who they hired to help run the government relations side of this. Dina Powell-McCormick. She's a heavyweight in international diplomacy. They aren't just building a corporate division. They are building nation-scale infrastructure.
They want to be completely independent.
Completely independent of the grid, independent of other utilities, independent of geopolitical whims. A true sovereign.
Then you contrast that with Microsoft. They seem to be taking a very different, almost opposite approach.
Microsoft is playing the diplomat. Their community-first model is, I think, a really savvy political move. They see the writing on the wall. They know that if they just roll into a town and suck up all the available power, the public backlash will be enormous.
So they're making these promises to pay the full freight?
That's their term for it. No cross-subsidization. If their data centers require grid upgrades, they pay for it upfront, not the local ratepayers. They are promising to replenish more water than they use. They are doing everything they can to secure a license to operate in a regulatory environment that's getting very hostile, very fast.
Speaking of hostile,
Yeah.
let's talk about the people who aren't in this exclusive club, the have-nots.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if you're an AI startup and you don't have $1 trillion market cap?
You enter the rental trap.
The rental trap. Explain that concept.
It's very simple, brutal economics. The hyperscalers, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they own the power. They own the nuclear plants. They own the chips. If you are a startup and you want to train a cutting-edge model, you have to rent that compute capacity from them.
And I'm guessing the markups aren't cheap.
Brutal. You're paying $2 to $4 an hour for access to chips that cost them a tiny fraction of that to operate, given their scale and their power advantage. You are effectively paying your biggest future competitor for the privilege of existing.
This sounds like a massive antitrust issue just waiting to happen.
It is the energy moat. Forget software, forget data. Power access is the new insurmountable barrier to entry. And it's why legal scholars are starting to talk very seriously about something called the essential facilities doctrine.
Which is exactly.
It's a legal concept. It goes way back. The idea is that if a facility like a railroad bridge or a telephone network is essential to competing in a market, and it's impossible for a competitor to duplicate, the owner must provide access on reasonable terms.
So the argument is that these gigawatt-scale compute clusters are the new railroads.
They're the new railroads. They're the new power grid. The question for regulators is, should this infrastructure be regulated like a common carrier, like a public utility?
If I'm a venture capitalist or a startup founder, I am praying for that regulation. But until that happens, what are my actual options?
You have to get creative. You have to fight a different war. And that's why we're seeing the sudden rise of decentralized AI. Networks like BitandSoar are a great example.
That's the model where you aggregate compute power from all over the place, right?
Yeah.
From crypto mining rigs, consumer GPUs, anything that's idle.
Exactly. It's guerrilla compute. It's messy, it's not perfect, but it's uncensorable and it doesn't require a dedicated nuclear reactor. The other path is just to think smaller, small language models, SLMs.
So stop trying to build AGI.
Stop trying to build God in a box.
Yeah.
Start building a really, really good specialized tool that can run on a laptop or a local server. That's the only viable survival path for the power poor.
We can't talk about power on this scale without talking about the map. This isn't just a corporate war anymore, it's a geopolitical one.
It is. Geography is destiny, and the map of the cloud, which we thought was settled, is being completely redrawn as we speak.
Let's start with the U.S. approach. We've seen the Trump administration get very involved in this in 2026.
aggressively involved. They've introduced these things called reliability power auctions. They are effectively forcing tech companies to sign 15-year contracts to finance the construction of new power plants, specifically gas and nuclear.
It's a very explicit pay-your-own-way philosophy.
It is. You see it in the legislation they're pushing, like the Power for the People Act. The message from Washington is crystal clear. You can build your AI utopia, but you are not going to raise grandma's electric bill by 30% to do it.
And they're also expanding export controls. It used to be all about stopping China from getting the most advanced chips.
Now it's much more subtle. It's about efficiency. The U.S. is restricting the export of technologies like high bandwidth memory, HBM, and advanced interconnects. The goal is to starve China of energy-efficient compute.
So the strategy is, if they want to build powerful AI, force them to burn more coal to do it.
Make it as thermodynamically and economically painful as possible.
Which brings us to China. How are they handling this energy wall?
With a massive state-directed master plan. They call it East Data West Computing.
It sounds like a propaganda slogan.
It does, but it's a very real multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure project. The logic is simple. The resource-rich west of China, places like Inner Mongolia, Guizhou, that's where the sun, the wind, and the coal is. But the tech hubs, the demand, is all in the East Shanghai, Shenzhen.
So they're physically moving the compute clusters.
They're moving the training clusters. You can't move the inference, the real-time stuff that powers apps because of latency. But for these long training runs, they are building massive hyperscale campuses in the West and using their world-leading ultra-high voltage transmission lines to connect everything.
It's strategic dispersion.
It is. It solves multiple problems at once. It utilizes stranded energy assets that had no one to sell to, and it provides a massive national security advantage. If you concentrate all your AI infrastructure in Shanghai, it's an easy target. You hide it in the remote mountains of Guizhou, it's much more secure.
So the global map is changing. The old hubs like Ashburn, Virginia, they're out. Where are the new hotspots?
Ohio, Texas, rural Wisconsin, places with abundant land, fresh water for cooling, and a grid that isn't completely fried yet.
And on the flip side, what about places like Ireland and Singapore?
They're becoming constrained islands. Ireland has what amounts to a de facto moratorium on new large data centers. Singapore has incredibly strict efficiency caps. If you want to build there now, your facility has to be ultra efficient. The days of cheap, easy expansion are over.
So let's try to wrap this all up. We started this deep dive by saying AI isn't really a software business anymore.
It's heavy industry. It's that simple. We have moved from the era of the dorm room coder in a hoodie to the era of the energy baron in a hard hat. The lines are gone. Meta and Microsoft. They are managing nuclear reactors. They are managing water rights. They are building their own high-voltage grid interconnects.
They're utility compute hybrids.
That's the perfect term for it. They are a completely new kind of industrial creature.
It really is a brave new world.
It is. And here's a final thought for you to chew on as we close out.
Let's hear it.
We are looking toward 2030. If commercial fusion doesn't arrive, and let's be honest, it probably won't in that time frame, the exponential curve of AI development will be flattened by the linear, unyielding reality of physics and power generation.
The wall is real.
The wall is real. So the question for everyone listening is this. In a world where computation is rationed by access to power, is intelligence itself about to become a finite strategic resource, controlled exclusively by those who own the uranium?
That is a very heavy thought to end on.
It's the new reality.
Well, on that note, this has been AI Unraveled.
Keep your power dry.
That wraps up our deep dive into the energy crisis. The signal for today is thermodynamics. The winner of the AI race in 2030 won't be the company with the smartest chatbot. It will be the company that can reject heat and generate power at a planetary scale. We are watching technology companies mutate into energy utilities in real time, and the consequences for the grid, the climate, and the economy are just beginning to surface. Before we go, a reminder for the leaders listening. Are you drowning in dense legal text? Jamgamind is the new audio intelligence platform that turns 100-page healthcare or energy mandates into 5-minute executive briefings. Whether you are navigating Bill C-27, Canada, or the CMS 0057F Interoperability Rule, USA, our AI agents decode the liability so you don't have to. Start your specialized audio briefing today at jamgamind.com. This podcast is created and produced by Etienne Newman, senior software engineer and passionate soccer dad from Canada. Please subscribe and share. Until next time, keep unraveling the future.